She showed up to the interview covered in mud, embarrassed, judged, and ready to give up. But the billionaire CEO watching her saw something no one else did. And with one unexpected choice, everything changed. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Mutually. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Emma Turner had stopped counting how many, we regret to inform you, emails she had received. Every morning, she woke up and checked her inbox with trembling hands, hoping for good news. But for over a month, all she got was silence or rejection. She was 26, with a college degree that seemed to mean nothing now. She had no job, no money, and barely any food. Her electricity had been cut off twice already. And her landlord had warned her that one more late rent and she'd be out on the street. Emma had cried quietly in the bathroom last night so her neighbor wouldn't hear. She looked at herself in the mirror, tired eyes, messy hair, and a heart that was starting to lose hope. But then a small miracle came. An email. Dear Emma Turner, we are pleased to invite you for an interview at Evans Company tomorrow at 11 a.m. She reread it over and over, afraid it might disappear. She jumped up, held the phone to her chest, and whispered, "Thank you, God. Please let this be it." She barely slept that night, too excited and too nervous. She woke up early, even before her alarm. The sun was shining through the thin curtain of her small bedroom, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like a good day. Emma opened her little closet. Most of her clothes were old or worn out, but she found a clean white shirt she had saved for something special. It had a tiny tear near the shoulder, but it was still neat. She ironed it carefully with a small, broken iron she borrowed from her neighbor. She paired it with her black trousers, simple, slightly loose, but clean. She tied her hair back, added a little powder to her face with a broken compact mirror, and smiled at herself.
This is it, Emma.
Today is your day. She folded her resume, tucked it in a plastic folder, and stepped out of her apartment, locking the door behind her. She didn't have money for a cab, so she walked quickly toward the train station, heels clicking on the wet pavement. She avoided puddles as best as she could. She had left early just in case. As she passed a street corner near the highway, a loud car engine roared behind her. She turned her head, and then splash. A speeding black car hit a giant puddle. Water mixed with thick brown mud flew into the air, so fast, so high, and landed straight on her. Emma stood frozen. Her white shirt was no longer white. Mud stained her chest, arms, and back. Her trousers were soaked. Even her face had drops of dirty water. It happened so fast, she didn't even scream. Her hands started shaking.
People nearby gasped.
A man looked at her with pity. A woman chuckled under her breath. Someone whispered, "Poor girl." Emma blinked hard, trying not to cry. Her folder had fallen to the ground. She picked it up slowly, her heart breaking with every second. She wanted to run back home.
To cry. To hide.
But she looked at her watch. 10:41 a.m. If she went home now, she'd never make it back in time. If she missed this interview, she might never get another chance. She stood there in the street, drenched, humiliated, and lost. Her throat tightened as a tear rolled down her cheek. "I can't go in like this," she whispered. But then a quiet voice inside her said, "You've come this far." She took a deep breath. Another. Then she wiped her face with the back of her hand, straightened her muddy shirt, and walked toward the tall building ahead. Each step felt heavy, like the whole world was watching her. And in a way, they were. Emma stepped into the tall glass building with shaky legs. The air inside was cool and smelled like expensive perfume and fresh coffee. The floor was polished so well she could almost see her own muddy reflection in it. People turned as she walked past. Some stared. Some whispered. One man dropped his pen when he saw her. A woman in a gray suit leaned toward her friend and muttered, "She must be in the wrong building." A guy in a tie laughed quietly and said, "Maybe she's here to clean the windows." Emma heard everything. Every word stabbed her like a needle. She felt like running out, disappearing, crying into her pillow, but she couldn't.
Not now.
She walked to the front desk. The young receptionist raised her eyebrows. Can I help you? Emma swallowed hard. I'm here for the 11 o'clock interview. Emma Turner. The receptionist stared for a second, then forced a smile.
Right.
Just have a seat. Someone will call you. Emma sat on the edge of the leather couch in the waiting area. The seat felt too soft, too clean, like it didn't want someone like her sitting on it. She tried to fold her arms over the mud stains, but it didn't help. Across the room, 3 other candidates sat. Perfect hair, neat suits, shiny shoes, fresh perfume. They kept looking at her and whispering. One of them, a blonde woman in red heels, leaned forward and whispered loud enough for Emma to hear, "This is why you leave 2 hours early, sweetie." Emma closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Just get through this. Just try. Meanwhile, behind a tall glass wall upstairs, someone else had noticed her. Daniel Evans, the CEO of Evans Company, stood at his office window with a cup of black coffee in his hand. He wasn't paying attention to the other candidates. His eyes were fixed on the muddy girl sitting alone, head bowed, holding a damp plastic folder in her lap. She looked like a broken doll. But there was something in her, something familiar. His assistant, Julia, walked in. "We're ready to start interviews, sir. Shall I send in Mr. Peterson first?" Daniel didn't answer. He kept staring at Emma. Then he said softly, "Who's that girl in the waiting area? The one in the mud." Julia blinked. "Oh, her? I'm not sure. Probably a mistake. She's definitely not on the top list." Daniel set his coffee down. "Send her in first." Julia frowned. "Sir, are you sure? She looks, well, not very professional." Daniel turned to her. His eyes were sharp but calm. "I said send her in." Julia sighed. "As you wish." Back downstairs, Emma sat trembling. She wiped her wet hands on her trousers, her eyes glued to the floor. Then she heard it. "Emma Turner?" She looked up in shock. Yes, that's me." The receptionist looked confused too. "Mr. Evans would like to see you now. You're first." Emma stood up slowly. First, she followed the assistant through a long, beautiful hallway. Marble floors, big paintings, glass doors. It all felt like a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. They stopped in front of a large wooden door. The assistant opened it and gave her a strange look. "Good luck." Emma walked inside. It was the biggest office she had ever seen. A huge window behind the desk showed the whole city. The room smelled like leather and books and something warm, like cinnamon. Behind the desk sat Daniel Evans. He looked nothing like she expected, younger than she thought. Serious face, but kind eyes. He smiled slightly and said, "Please have a seat." Emma stood frozen. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to come in like this. A car, there was mud. I didn't have time to go home, and Daniel raised his hand gently. "It's all right. You came. That's what matters." She sat down slowly, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. He looked at her resume. It was crumpled and damp. "You've had a rough month," he said, looking her in the eye. Emma nodded. "Yes, sir." He paused. "Why didn't you turn back after what happened outside?" Emma swallowed hard, then gave a little nervous laugh. "Because if I went back, I'd miss the interview. And I didn't want to miss this. I can't afford to miss this." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he leaned back and said softly, "Neither could I." Emma blinked. "Sir?" He smiled a little wider this time. "Once, a long time ago, I came to my first interview in shoes that had holes. My shirt had a rip. I was scared. People laughed at me too." Emma's lips trembled. He said quietly, "So I know what it feels like when the world looks at your clothes instead of your heart." And at that moment, something in Emma broke. Tears welled up in her eyes. She looked down, ashamed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I told myself I wouldn't cry." Daniel reached for a box of tissues and slid it across the desk. "Then let's both pretend we don't see it." Emma gave a small, teary laugh. "Thank you," she said softly, clutching the tissue. And for the first time in weeks, maybe even months, she felt seen. Not as the girl with mud on her shirt, but as someone who mattered. Emma wiped her tears and gave a weak smile. She still couldn't believe she was sitting in front of Daniel Evans, the CEO everyone talked about on TV and in newspapers. And he had just handed her tissues. Daniel leaned forward and spoke kindly. "Tell me something, Emma, what makes you want this job so badly?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. There were so many things she wanted to say. So many truths that felt too heavy to speak. But she took a deep breath. "Because I'm tired," she began, her voice shaking. "Tired of trying and failing. Tired of people seeing me as nothing. I have dreams, sir. I want to matter. I want to wake up and feel like I belong somewhere." She looked down at her hands, still stained with mud. "I've sent my resume to over 50 places. No one even called. This interview was my last hope. I used the last bit of internet on my phone just to reply to your email." Daniel was quiet for a long time. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look bored. He just listened. Emma blinked away another tear and tried to laugh. "And then the universe decided to throw a puddle at me." Daniel chuckled gently. "A very large puddle." Emma laughed too. For a second, the room didn't feel like a CEO's office. It felt like talking to a kind stranger who understood. Daniel sat back, folding his arms. "You know, most people come in here trying to impress me," he said. "They talk about their degrees, their plans, their 5-year goals. But none of that really shows me who they are." He looked straight at her. "You just showed me everything I needed to see." Emma's eyes widened. I don't understand." Daniel stood up and walked to the window behind him. He looked out at the city for a moment, hands in his pockets. "I used to be you, Emma," he said quietly. "Hungry, jobless, humiliated. There was a day I came into an interview in a second-hand suit 3 sizes too big. The receptionist laughed. The manager told me I looked cheap. But someone gave me a chance anyway." He turned to her and smiled. "And that one yes changed my life." Emma covered her mouth with her hands. Her eyes were filling again, but this time it was hope, not pain. Daniel walked back to his desk and picked up her soggy resume. He held it up and said, This isn't a piece of paper. It's a piece of your story. A story of not giving up." Then he looked her in the eye. "You're hired, Emma." Emma froze. "What?" she whispered. "You're hired. Starting Monday, you'll be my executive assistant. You'll be working directly under me." Emma burst into tears. I don't know what to say." Daniel smiled warmly. "Start with thank you, and then maybe get yourself some clean clothes." She laughed through her tears. "Thank you. Thank you, sir. I promise I'll work hard. I won't let you down." He chuckled, reaching for another tissue and tossing it lightly her way. "Just don't cry on the office printer. It's very sensitive." She laughed again, wiping her face. Her body felt lighter, like the weight of the world had finally slid off her shoulders. Then she paused and said, "Sir, I'm sorry about your office chair." Daniel looked confused. "My chair? I might have gotten mud on it," she said, eyes wide. Daniel laughed so hard, he actually had to sit back down. "Don't worry," he said between chuckles. "That chair needed a little personality anyway." Emma laughed too, her whole face glowing. And for the first time in a long, long time, her laugh wasn't forced. She was still in a muddy shirt. Her trousers still smelled a little like rainwater. But her heart was finally clean. Emma couldn't sleep the night before her first day. She had washed her muddy clothes, but they were still stained. So she borrowed a blouse and a black skirt from her neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, a sweet old lady who always smelled like peppermint and cat food. "Here," Mrs. Delaney said, holding up the blouse proudly. "I wore this when I met my husband in 1973. It still works." Emma laughed. "It's beautiful, thank you." She ironed it carefully and polished her shoes with a drop of cooking oil because she had no shoe polish. She tied her hair back neatly and stood in front of the mirror. "I still look like me," she whispered. "Just a better version." The next morning, she walked into Evan's company again, this time with her head high and her heart pounding. The same receptionist blinked twice when she saw her.
Oh,
Welcome back, Miss Turner, she said, voice stiff. Mr. Evans is expecting you. Emma nodded with a kind smile. Thank you. She walked past the waiting area where she had once sat covered in mud. This time, no one whispered. Some people even smiled at her, though she wasn't sure if it was out of respect or confusion. She took the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Daniel Evans was already standing there, waiting. He smiled. Right on time. Emma smiled back. I didn't want to mess up on the first day. Let me show you around, he said, leading her through the office. Everywhere they went, people stared. Whispers floated through the air, like perfume. Is that her? She's the muddy girl from the interview. Why is she walking with the CEO? Emma tried to ignore it, but her cheeks felt hot. They stopped at a large desk near Daniel's office. This is your workspace, he said. You'll handle my schedule, organize meetings, and occasionally remind me not to drink 5 cups of coffee before noon. Emma smiled.
got it.
And if you do drink 5, then you get to watch me run around the office like a squirrel on sugar. She laughed loudly and covered her mouth. Sorry. He smiled. No, I like that laugh. Keep it. Her first task was helping Daniel prepare for a big board meeting. As she flipped through the files and took notes, her fingers shook a little. Daniel noticed and said gently, Relax. You're not going to break anything. Except maybe the printer, it's cursed. She giggled, then took a deep breath. And slowly, the nervousness began to fade. Hours passed. Emma worked hard. She listened. She asked questions. She typed so fast, one of the senior staff jokingly said, her fingers might start a fire. But not everyone was happy. Across the office, Monica, the senior assistant who had expected the job Emma now had, watched her with narrowed eyes. She leaned over to another staff member and said, Let's see how long the charity case lasts. Emma didn't hear it, but Daniel did. He was passing by quietly and caught the whisper. He stopped at Monica's desk and said with a calm but sharp voice, We don't build others by tearing someone down, especially not someone who earned her place. Monica went quiet. Emma, sitting nearby, blinked in surprise. She didn't say a word, but inside, her heart felt warm. By lunch, she was exhausted but happy. She sat alone at the break room table, eating a small sandwich she had made at home. Then Daniel walked in. He looked at her sandwich, then looked at his own lunch tray, 3 croissants, a salad, and a giant smoothie. Want a trade? He asked with a grin. Emma laughed.
No way.
That smoothie looks dangerous. He sat down across from her. You're doing great, Emma. She looked at him, eyes misty. You really think so? I know so. She looked down at her sandwich and said quietly, No one's ever believed in me like this before. Daniel's voice softened. Then they've been blind. But not anymore. Emma blinked fast, trying not to cry in the break room. And just when she thought her heart couldn't hold any more emotion, Daniel pulled something out of his pocket. It was a small, folded note. He handed it to her. She opened it and read, Your story isn't over yet. Sometimes the muddiest days lead to the most beautiful tomorrows. Emma put her hand over her mouth. Tears spilled over, silent and grateful. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Daniel smiled and stood up. It's only the beginning. Emma walked back to her desk, holding the note tightly in her hand. She read the words over and over again. Your story isn't over yet. Sometimes the muddiest days lead to the most beautiful tomorrows. She had no idea how a stranger like Daniel Evans had seen something in her when she couldn't even see it in herself. Her whole life, she had been told she was too poor, too plain, or not enough. Now, for the first time, someone looked at her and said, You are enough. As the weeks passed, Emma bloomed. She still made small mistakes, like sending an email to the wrong Daniel once, who turned out to be a confused accountant in Ohio. But she laughed at herself now. And so did Daniel. She learned fast. She worked hard. And every time someone tried to question why she was there, Daniel shut it down with one calm look. One afternoon, a delivery man came into the office with flowers. He handed them to Emma. She blinked. "Are you sure these are for me?" The man smiled. "Yes, Mississippi. From Mr. Evans." She opened the card. It said, "For your courage, your heart, and your coffee-making skills. Still working on the last one."
D.
She laughed softly, pressing the card to her chest. But not everything was easy. There were nights she still went home to a small, cold apartment. She still had to count coins before buying groceries. She still felt lonely sometimes. But her heart was full in a way it had never been before. And then came the day everything changed. Daniel invited Emma to a company event, a big celebration for the firm's anniversary. Emma wore a simple navy blue dress she'd found at a thrift store. It fit her like it had been made just for her. When she entered the hall, people turned to stare, not because she was covered in mud this time, but because she looked like light in human form. Daniel walked over and offered her his arm. "You look stunning." She blushed. "You're just saying that." "No," he said gently. "I'm saying what's true." Halfway through the evening, Daniel took the stage to speak. He talked about success, growth, and the future. But then his voice changed.
Softer.
Warmer. "I want to tell you all a story," he said, looking around the room. "A few months ago, I met a young woman. She walked into my office covered in mud."
People laughed.
Some whispered. But I saw her. I saw the fire in her eyes, the strength in her words. He paused, then looked straight at Emma. "That girl reminded me of who I used to be. And she reminded me that everyone deserves a chance, even when they look like they've fallen." The room was silent. Not a single whisper. Just stillness and emotion. He raised his glass. To second chances. And to Emma Turner. People clapped. Some stood. Emma stood there, frozen. Tears ran down her cheeks. She couldn't move. Her heart felt like it would burst. After the event, as people left the hall, Daniel came to her quietly. "Did I embarrass you?" he asked with a small smile. She shook her head, tears still in her eyes. "You gave me the best moment of my life." He smiled. "Then I've done something right." There was a pause. Then Emma looked at him and asked the question that had been sitting in her heart for weeks. "Why me, Daniel? Why did you choose me that day?" Daniel looked at her with soft eyes. "Because," he said, "you showed up when everything was against you. You didn't run. You didn't hide. You walked into that room covered in mud, but full of hope. That's the kind of person I want beside me." Then he added quietly, "And maybe because I needed someone like you in my life, too." Emma's lip trembled. She smiled, eyes shining. "I used to think the mud ruined everything," she whispered. "But maybe it was the beginning." Daniel took her hand gently. "It was," he said. "It was the start of something beautiful." And just like that, a poor girl who once sat alone, judged for her dirty clothes, became the heart of a company, and the reason a millionaire remembered what truly mattered. Not clothes, not money, but courage, kindness, and never giving up. And love, the kind that begins when the world least expects it. That brings us to the end of this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share it to whoever you feel will be interested in it. Thanks for watching.